You should also be the type of person who can present that information in an organized manner. For example, supposing government would like to put out a certain note about an incident which took place. They want you to prepare a note in, let's say, 500 words which contains all the essential information. You should be able to do that. It should not happen that you send a 15-page note. So that is what the main examination tests. Are you able to organize your facts, your material in a succinct, accurate, and well organized manner? So that is why the question, that is why there is essay writing, that is why there are questions which fix the length of the answer and all that. So for the main examination, what you need to do is to identify topics, prepare short pieces, memorize them, or keep reading them again and again. And you should also develop what I call organized thinking. When you develop organized thinking, you develop the ability to automatically start from a certain point and end at a certain point. Many of us lack that skill, so we should try to develop that. Third part of the examination is the personality test or interview as it is called. The purpose is to check up whether you are the jumpy type. So they'll deliberately ask you questions where you will be confronted with contradicting type of situations. Like once I was heading a mock interview session, and I asked a person who said that he's totally against drinking. I said, supposing you are posted in a position where your role is to promote the sale of liquor, what would you do? So he found it very difficult to answer, because just a moment ago he had said that liquor is absolutely unacceptable. Now, that is where you have to be cautious about the type of statements you make. Do you make a statement which closes the door for answering further questions? Similarly, these days, for example, this farmers' agitation is going on. Now, those people who are going to go for interviews this year, they would definitely be asked about farmers' agitation. Now, supposing you are a very strong leftist type of a person, you might take a stand which tends to create an impression that in administration also you could start sabotaging the government's policies. You're not expected to toe the government line very blindly, but at the same time, any setup, even if it is a private setup, would not work efficiently if there are people who sabotage it from within. Let's say that there is a liquor company in which the general manager works against liquor, then naturally he is a misfit there. So these are some of the things one has to keep in mind. Then one question which is often asked is, how difficult or easy is it to get selected? I want to give a practical side of the picture also. And the practical side of the picture is something which I keep telling again and again, that this is not an examination where they set a certain cutoff mark and say whoever gets more than these will get selected. Here, the cutoff mark is decided by the competition. So it is the number that decides. So ultimately, at the end of the entire examination, let's say after the preliminaries, 10,000 get selected, then after the mains, about 2,000 get selected. In the final list, about 1,000 people are going to get selected. So imagine that there are 1,000 chairs. Then you cannot make 5,000 people sit on those 1,000 chairs, even if all the 5,000 deserve to sit there. So something which you must keep in mind is, even if 1 lakh best brains in the world sit for the civil services examination, it is only 1,000 who will get finally selected. So with all your intelligence, with all your hard work, with all your deserving, there is a limit set by the number, which means nobody can say with 100% certainty, I shall get selected. This is in spite of all the motivational talk, all the big things that have been said by all the big people about success and failure and all that. Let us be practical also, and the practical fact is the number 1000 sets a limit because of which whatever may be the level of intelligence, whatever may be the sincerity, the other than 1000 are going to get rejected or are going to face failure. Therefore, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep other options also. That's what I always keep telling people, because I have seen candidates who appear 5 times, 6 times. By the time they attain the age of 31, 30, 32, they remain unmarried, they get highly frustrated, they lose other options in job, and it very negatively affects their mind. So don't do that. My suggestion is, if you are getting a good job, take it up. And along with your good job, keep preparing. It requires about a year of constant preparation and then 1 month of 24/7 preparation. So if your job permits you to take 1 month's leave prior to the preliminaries and 1 month's leave prior to the mains, then keep doing that job, and 1 month prior to the exams, take leave, sit down and do nothing than revision of whatever you have done, and you would have very good chances of selection. Therefore, if you can retain your job, that is my advice to everybody. One question which is often asked is how to prepare oneself for the current affairs, because current affairs people find very difficult. It seems to be so huge that one doesn't know what to do. Now, this is where a tricky situation is created by many of the websites and training centers, because they don't want that tomorrow you should say, sir, this question came and you had not taught us this. So, like the doctor who would like to give you all the antibiotics and all the other types of vitamins and everything, so that tomorrow you don't say you didn't give me this vitamin E, that is why I could not recover. The training center person would give you everything. It is for you to make a selection. So how do you make a selection is the biggest trick. Now, that is where you need to analyze previous year's questions and find out what type of questions are asked. And here I can give you a few tips. One is they create a mix of questions. One type of questions are so difficult that virtually nobody is expected to answer those questions. So those questions basically are intended to confuse those candidates who do not know how to distinguish the essential from the non-essential. So what happens is, when you see this type of a question, you say, oh my God, if this type of question can be asked, then anything can be asked. But you don't need to know those questions, because all you have to get is about 110 marks in the preliminaries, which will push you above the cutoff. So you don't need to know everything in the world. And second thing is that the preliminaries marks are not going to be counted. So you don't have to know everything. You just need to cross a hurdle. So this is one thing you must keep in mind. Second thing is, there are some questions which are intended to judge your ability to discriminate, that is your understanding of the subtler aspects of language. They may, for example, define democracy in 2-3 different ways and expect you to choose the best definition. So that is where you need to do a lot of thinking to train yourself to distinguish among different ways of expressing things. Again, I would recommend meditation. So another type of questions which can mislead, There may be a question 10 years ago which was relevant at that time, but which may not be relevant today. Let us say that there was a dispute about a certain river between Myanmar and India, and they asked the location of that river. Or they give a map in which a certain town in Myanmar is located, and you are expected to identify that. Now, at that time, that information would have appeared during that year many, many times, so that was relevant. Today, it is not relevant. So, see whether that topic was topical or it has permanent value. So, make a choice like this. Another thing that I would say is don't spend too much time on the newspapers. I know this is going to jar many people's sense of proportion. But the point is, the newspaper carries a lot of information which has temporary value. A murder in so-and-so place, robbery here, this here, that here, agitation, so many people arrested. These details are going to become irrelevant after a couple of days. And whatever is important for you from the point of view of your examination is going to be summarized by the websites and the magazines that you use for your preparation. So it is not necessary for you. Just give a glance, maybe spend about an hour maximum, and that also you should focus on the editorial part and articles part. So I think I have said virtually everything that needed to be said. If there are any other questions, you can always contact me, and I would be happy to answer your questions. And thanks a lot for inviting me. All my best to you. Thank you very much.